We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's March 27th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yun, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Japan's baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani on Monday has finally spoke up about the gambling scandal surrounding his interpreter. Last week, news first broke out that at least $4.5 million was withdrawn from Ohtani's bank accounts to be used for sports gambling. On Monday, the baseball player told reporters he did not know money, reportedly millions, was being sent from one of his bank accounts to a bookmaker. Ohtani said he only figured out 5 days ago when he met one-on-one with his longtime interpreter, Ipei Mitsuhara. Mitsuhara is currently being accused of massive theft and placing bets with the bookmaker with Ohtani's money. Ohtani recently signed the biggest contract in baseball with the LA Dodgers. Speaking of sports, live streaming of major matches on OTT platforms are attracting more subscribers. That's according to an annual report released by CJ Entertainment on Tuesday. The report surveyed 488 OTT platform subscribers between the ages of 20 and 59 and found that more than half said they continue to subscribe because their platform provided live streaming of major sports events. Also, 47% watched at least one sports match per week, pointing to how popular this type of content is. And Korea has one of the most advanced food delivery services in the world. Adding on to its prestige is the upgrade of services that different apps are launching. Coupang Eats, for example, on Tuesday launched a free-of-charge delivery fee service to paid subscribers. This means that those who are eligible will be able to get their delivery food for free, regardless of how much they order and from how far. Now, industry experts believe Coupang Eats took this measure to find an edge against their mega competitor, 배달민족, which has long maintained its top position in the delivery food app market. Data shows that up till last month, the number of monthly users on 배달민족 surpassed 21 million. Now, Coupang Eats, on the other hand, had a little over 5.7 million users. And we're seeing different food delivery apps try to top each other with more convenient services. And I guess this is great news for consumers because since the pandemic, we've definitely grown the habit of trying to order in. And I would like to ask, what do you think about Coupang Eats' latest innovative idea to make delivery charges free of charge for those premium users? And do you think that it's a very important factor when you consider where to order from?
It's a very important factor for me and many others out there because of the increase in delivery fees. We've talked about how many younger generations, they're choosing to delete these apps from their phones. And I've actually started cooking a lot more as well because these delivery fees were too expensive. But with Coupang Eats introducing its new free delivery service, which is very welcoming as a subscriber myself, I think I'll take advantage of it. And in fact, I was actually a user of 배달민족, the other app. But then I switched to Coupang Eats because as a subscriber of Coupang, I realized that I can get discounts for the delivery fees in the past if I were a user of Coupang as well on Coupang Eats, which is why I switched. So delivery fee is definitely an important factor.
It's quite fascinating to see how e-commerce is blending in so much into our lives. We can have everything by the front of our door with just a swipe of a finger. And I must say, delivery fees play such an important part because I always had that temptation to order a bit more food. Because they say if you add like $10 worth of more food, the delivery fee would be free. But you know how that goes. You end up eating too much, which doesn't go with your diet. And sometimes you end up wasting a lot of food. But now money, not to say. Now, but to hear that delivery fees are free of charge, did that come as great news to you too?
I mean, it's absolutely fabulous. I've taken advantage of this situation, and let me say, it's not helped my diet, as you said. For me, I always like to order the extra amount of food to get that free service, but now I don't have to. I can still order more food and it still be free. So
you no longer have an excuse.
I no longer have an excuse, to be honest with you, but it's great. I definitely welcome this service. I mean, for me, the fee that they put onto the delivery fee, I think is very, very important. For me, even though I really want a food, I will not go past about $4 US dollars of delivery fees. You can get between 0 to at least 4.
Exactly.
So I usually like to float around the $1 or $2 mark. But yes, this is very welcoming, and I plan to use this application a lot in the coming days.
We'll have to see how your diet goes, because I'm with you on that one. I have no excuse anymore to order in more. Now, switching gears to our main discussion now. Starting next year, the South Korean government will require wedding service providers to reveal their prices so that consumers don't have to pay an extra dime or feel ripped off. This also aligns with the government's measures to develop youth-friendly services and encourage more young couples to get married. My AI voice will walk us through this measure.
From 2025, the government will require firms to make information public on wedding-related services, such as hair and makeup, photo studios, and the wedding dress itself. In other words, they will make sure all wedding-related items and their prices are disclosed on the Korea Consumer Agency's information site, mainly to reduce the amount of contract-related damage cases some consumers have complained about. Many couples have made clear that they've been disadvantaged from some unfavorable disclaimers and excessive penalties. That's why officials bid to establish standard terms and conditions for marriage preparation agencies. They also said they would conduct regular surveys from 2026 onwards to better monitor the wedding service industry. This includes looking into the cost and any reports of consumer complaints.
Spring is a popular season for couples deciding to tie the knot. And just as my AI voice explained, the South Korean government is trying its best to encourage more young people to get married by better monitoring any loopholes in its wedding services industry. And we're going to start here with our discussion by first illustrating the key traits of a Korean wedding. And I think some people call our wedding styles a factory-like wedding, right?
Yes, that's correct. Now, yes, factory weddings, they don't sound romantic. However, they do dominate the genre of what the style of wedding Koreans have. Now, usually what happens is because they are very much set, as you heard on the AI voice, they have certain things that you can add on to, almost like if you're adding onto a car in a factory. But first, let me show you how popular factory-style weddings are here in comparison to other style weddings. So let's take a look at the screen. Now, a whopping 73% of weddings are done in factory-style halls. Now, next, if you can afford it, which I cannot, hotels are the preferred choice of wedding, followed by churches, outdoor weddings, and house-style weddings. Not in your house, because that means you wouldn't be able to invite too many people, because, you know, we know in Korea the apartments are extremely small. So the name suggests, factory-style weddings are exactly that. Weddings that are run like a factory. Wedding ceremonies usually take around 2 hours. That's including the food as well as the greetings at the end. If there are certain features like a wedding singer, be sure that that wedding singer will play on the next wedding just after yours. So it doesn't sound so special, but unfortunately, that's the kind of package that you get. Once a wedding is finished, the wedding hall will be ready for the next bride to come down. So sometimes you'll even see the bride waiting outside the wedding hall while your wedding is finished. So it's going in and out at the same time. So in many situations, but not all, there is a buffet-style restaurant to cater to the many guests that you don't know, because let's put it this way, in Korea, the wedding is also the parents' day as well, and they invite all their friends and etc., etc. But that's what a factory-style wedding is.
I think you really nailed it in the butt there, like as to what a factory-style wedding's like. But would you like to add on to more unique characteristics of a Korean wedding?
Sure. Well, Walter really sounded like a promoter of
I know, factory-style
wedding. Anyway, so he pretty much outlined all the typical aspects of a commonplace wedding that we have here in the country. And having attended a few weddings myself as well, I've noticed the similarities that the ceremonies share, as well as the preparations that couples usually go through. However, nowadays, young couples, they're really adding their own unique touch to their special days as well. For instance, they might add a little couple dance dance, or even add a little play or skit depicting how they've met in the first place to really try and entertain their guests a lot more. And they're also opting to just hold a small wedding at a house or a small garden to save money as well. So they're really choosing these unique methods to really be self-expressive and to be more efficient as well.
That's still a minority, though, because as we saw from the figures, more than 7 out of 10 couples are opting for factory-like weddings. And Walter mentioned a great point here. I think the key concept behind Korean weddings is it should be a day for the couples, but actually a lot of people think it's a day where people receive a lot more of the gift money that they've been giving out, especially on the parents' side, because they've been to all of their colleagues or friends' weddings, and now that it's their children's turn, they want the money back, which is why we're seeing a lot of cost-efficient fast weddings like factory weddings. But could we now look into why and how this concept's really concreted into being a epitome of Korean weddings?
Well, as the only married person on the panel here, let me give you my experience and my cultural shocks to attending and also being in a factory-style wedding. So first, why is it so commonplace? Well, the culture shocks were the reason why they were so commonplace here. I think it seems a little bit fake, in my opinion. Everything is so, how can I say, materialistic. Every flower is the same. It looks perfect, to be honest with you. It does look like a beautiful wedding hall to many outsiders, I think. But when you kind of been to so many weddings here in South Korea, you kind of get sort of like, oh, this looks like the same other wedding. But that's the whole point. They want them to look a certain way, and that's the reason why they've become such a commonplace. I think another reason why they are so commonplace is how convenient they are. Now, that's because everything is taken care of by the wedding hall planner. Now, that means from where you go from the very start, where you stand. So in Korea, there's usually at the entrance, the groom will stand at the front while the bride gets her photos with all her friends, and then you move from place to place, but it's all done meticulously by the aides and the people who work there. So I think it's not just about a money factor, but it's also about a convenient factor.
The convenience definitely plays a part. It's almost like an equation, and hence why we're seeing from next year the government trying to reveal the prices of all these different types of equation that goes into making the perfect Korean style wedding. Because in the past, people really didn't know. They had a general idea on the average price, but some said that that's not really fair, and it actually pushes a lot of couples to decide whether to tie the knot or not, because they really need more access to accurate information to how costly these convenient processes could be. Now, Chi, would you like to add on to why you think these Korean factory-style weddings became so commonplace?
Well, in fact, the traditional Korean weddings, I'm not sure if you've been to any one, but they used to spend the whole day to celebrate the wedding. Yes, for the couples and the people involved. So it's very different from the modern weddings that we're seeing, the factory-like weddings. And I think they changed because of industrialization and urbanization. People are wanting more efficiency. They don't want to spend a day on a wedding because they have a lot of other things to do. They're busy with their lives. And they've been streamlined also because of the tendency of Koreans to get things done quickly, the 빨리빨리 culture. And this definitely has influenced the simplification of weddings as well. And some may criticize these factory-style weddings for being too monotonous or lacking a variety. However, some other countries, they actually come to the country to admire and benchmark these wedding styles because they think it's very efficient.
Yeah, it is very efficient. And I think all the weddings that I've been to in Korea so far, they didn't last more than like 2 hours tops, which really aligns the 빨리빨리 culture, our regional number being 8-2, and 빨리 in Korean meaning quick. Now, as you mentioned before though, Chi, I think I would now like to focus on how our generation is spicing things up. I think our generation loves doing that. We're making new trends even at the wedding scenes, right?
Spicy. We're all about spicing things up. I think weddings these days are becoming more customized, to be honest with you, more following the path of Western style weddings as they'll see on movies where they go walking down the aisle. It's in a beautiful garden. I think that's where a lot of our generation are heading. But Also, recently we found out that the Koreans, 100% Koreans, are going down. We're becoming an old age society, and therefore there's a lot less people getting married. But there are a lot of international couples that are occurring these days here in Korea, and therefore what they want is sort of a half-half wedding. So where it would be half traditional Korean wedding and the other half maybe a bit more casual, a bit more Western style. I think this is where we're seeing a lot of differences with the Generation Z, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Recently, Statistics Korea released a survey showing 1 out of 10 of the newly couples are international, which is why we're seeing different cultures mesh even at the wedding scene. But as you mentioned very briefly, with smaller wedding ceremonies, what else is our generation trying to lead here?
Right. Well, although factory style weddings are the norm still, slowly we're seeing some changes among the younger generations and the younger couples because they're choosing to be a lot more unique and diverse. And this is partly to do with the expressive characteristic of the younger generation, and they opt not to stick to the norm when it comes to anything like a wedding. So some even skip these ceremonies and go straight to their honeymoons, or even just take photos and not hold any ceremony at all, or even go on a trip. And many hold after parties as well, prioritizing the socialization, the social gathering with their friends and their families. And celebrities are opting to hold small weddings as well. And this is definitely influencing the younger generation as well. And in order to match this changing preferences of the younger couples in the country, the government has recently allowed public spaces like the National Museum of Korea or the Art Museum to be open to the public so that they can use it as wedding halls. So they're a lot cheaper and they have more spaces to hold their weddings in.
I think we're all on the same page now as to realizing that marriage and a wedding day should really be about the couple and being with your loved ones, celebrating your romance. Now, we asked our viewers to share what a traditional or typical wedding looks like in their countries these days. If you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of them had to share with us. Let's start with Joanne. Joanne said in Catalonia, we have civil and religious ceremonies. Civil ceremonies are held in the mayor's buildings and religious ceremonies in churches. After then, we go to the restaurants to eat too much and then do some dancing. Rex said one interesting wedding tradition in the Philippines is a money dance, where male guests pin money on the bride's gown, while female guests will pin money on the groom's suit. Soon enough, both bride and groom are practically covered in money while dancing. This is to bring good luck and good fortune to the newlyweds. Leon says having weddings at void decks of our public flats is a distinctive tradition with the Malay community in Singapore. Also, as Singapore is a cultural melting pot, weddings often incorporate traditions from Chinese, Malay, Indian, and European cultures. And speaking of India, we're going to compare what weddings are like there by including a Gen Z who's been living in India. Stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to turn to Lee Ha-young, a Gen Z who's lived in India for 12 years now. Ha-young's going to compare weddings in Korea to India. Welcome, Ha-young.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ha-young. Thank you for having me here.
All right, Ha-young, given the fact that you lived in India for a while, have you ever been to a stereotypical wedding there in India? And have you also been to one in Korea? What do you think are the biggest differences are?
Well, I've been to a few in Korea. I mean, I've been living in Korea for, I think, about 6 years now. So I've been to the ones that were held at churches, as well as the wedding ceremonies, the wedding halls that you guys were talking about. So the ones in churches obviously are not chaotic, nor is it all crazy. But then the ones that are in Korea, I would definitely say that it's pretty chaotic, and I don't really buy the idea of the whole time slot and the whole factory-like wedding. So, most people are really running busy from like going from one corner to the other. Because I also remember they were asking us to, take a picture with the bride and then attend the ceremony. And then right after that, we had to go ahead and have lunch, which was all like like sort it out. And I wasn't sure about this idea because I didn't have a lot of time to really, go and, meet and greet everyone. So yeah, that was my experience in the Korean, wedding ceremonies. As In the case for India, India is also chaotic. They have a lot of events going on, but then unlike Korean cases, you're not pressed over time. So, out of the few differences that I can think of, one major difference is that in India, unlike Korea, you have to, I mean, you get to have a ceremony that's different, that's definitely lasts longer than the Korean ones. So, weddings entirely differ, and especially according to the religions in India, but I'll just go over the common ones. So, I remember attending a friend's mother's wedding, and usually the whole wedding ceremony takes place for 3 whole days. And in Korea, people borrow a certain wedding hall or wedding venue, and I'm not really sure how it exactly works, but in India, they borrow this whole resort or a very big open space for an entire day or so. So they have the ceremony there. And so for the first and the second day, it's usually for congratulating the bride and the groom. And they have this whole celebration and dances and a lot of decorations going on for them. And the actual wedding takes place on the third day. That is the last day. So, everyone comes together and, have this big fat celebration. So whereas in Korea, the whole ceremony just lasts for 2 hours, right? So
Yeah.
for the time and effort the bride and the groom had spent for this wedding, it's definitely a short time, I would say.
I guess the biggest difference there would be time. Now, before we let you go, very briefly, what do you think are some pros and cons behind Indian weddings that you would like to see happen here in Korea?
Um, as I mentioned, I would really want the time slot to increase, like because in Korea, I think it's just 2 hours for a couple, if I'm not wrong. So obviously, I would really want the slot to increase, maybe 2, maybe 3 or 4 hours. And for a person who also plans to get married here, I'd say I'm not a big fan of this. So yeah, I really hope this could be a big change in Korea.
All right, hopefully we'll see some pros from Indian weddings also be incorporated into Korean weddings. Thank you so much, Hyung. It was a pleasure hearing from you today.
Thank you so much.
All right, and we're going to end off by sharing any tips or ideas on how to make our wedding day even more special. You've already been married, but if you were to go back that day, what would you do different?
Customize, customize, customize. The thing was, what I found about my wedding was no different from all my other friends' weddings, which I found a little bit disheartening. And it did take away from the feeling of getting married, but I was so nervous that day, I forgot everything. But if you get a chance, really try and customize your wedding to something that you like rather than what is the traditional norms here in Korea, I think.
see. What about you, Ji?
Well, the whole purpose of a wedding is to really celebrate and receive congratulations.
Yeah.
That's the essence. So make sure not to be swayed by external standards. And like Walter said, customize and know for yourself what you think is important.
And understand the essence of a wedding, I think, is the main point today, because it should be a celebration between you and your loved one and your friends and family. And hopefully you'll be able to benefit from the government's policy next year, which is knowing how much the average price is to be borrowing a dress, studio, makeup, hair, and everything. Because at the end of the day, it is costly. Though it is a very important day of your life, knowing to make a very wise and efficient decision based on your wedding day seems to be key. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee
Thank you.
and Chiji.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.